Hello, hello, and welcome to October's Patreon Q&A session. Now, I haven't had one of these for the last 2 months because there were no questions being asked on my Patreon, and this month is making up for it with 5 questions. I wasn't able to squeeze like a summary of all 5 questions into the title, but most of them I have managed to squeeze in there. So we're going to rattle through these one at a time. There's some good ones in here. So yeah, if you're watching this after the event, I will be chapterizing this video, and you can kind of jump ahead and see which questions you want answering. But in a nutshell, the 5 questions are the first one's asking about my experiences at Spiel Essen this year. Spiel Essen, for those of you who don't know, is the world's largest tabletop convention, mainly focused on board games. And unlike other gaming conventions, it is mostly about sales and capitalism. There's not a lot of gaming that actually goes on there. It's all about buying things. And I work the Free League booth there this year. This is my 3rd year that I've worked the Free League booth, and I'll probably continue to do so every year as long as I'm healthy and able to do so. So my thoughts on that was the first question. Second question is, can I see myself sometime in the future not playing role-playing games anymore? Third one is a fairly big loaded question asking all about sci-fi role-playing, especially hard sci-fi role-playing. Also asking what sort of sci-fi media I enjoy. So that'll be quite a big one to talk through because I love sci-fi. The fourth one is asking about do's and don'ts when it comes to playing role-playing games online for somebody new to online role-playing. And the last question is basically asking about Free League's free tabletop license, which is their new version of the OGL, and specifically whether I'll be using it in some of my own projects. So I'll be talking a little bit about the license then as well. So those are the 5 questions. You can kind of look at the chapters if you're watching this in the future and kind of jump to whichever ones you might be interested in if you're not interested in all 5. But I'll try to rattle through these as quickly as possible so this isn't a super long video. So the first question asking about Spiel Essen. Specifically, the question is, I'd like to ask about my experience at Spiel Essen. Would you attend if you were not working for Free League? What was the highlight for you, and were there any downsides? Did you come across any hidden gems? And of course, yeah, and many thanks, and of course thanks for the amazing products you create. So let's break this down little by little. My experience at Spiel Essen, I mean, it's working on a booth for the entire 4 days, essentially full time. I do get a lunch break for an hour each day, and I do get 2 days where I get a 2-hour. On 2 different days, I get 2-hour break as well, where I'm able to go and do some of my own shopping and looking around, etc. So it is pretty intense. Like, you're on the booth selling constantly, and this year we added a bunch of demos in. We were doing demos of Mutant Year Zero's Zone Wars skirmish game, which we had brought the prototype. Well, the chaps from Free League in Sweden brought their prototype along so we could run demos of that, and also running demos of Dragonbane. So that was a little bit more involved. We had a much bigger booth than we've ever had this year, and we're able to have 2 dedicated demo tables. Yeah, my experience is it's a cool convention. There's a lot of cool people coming. Most of the people there are looking to purchase. So there's my previous experiences where it's mostly there for me as as someone to recommend games for people to purchase. But this year, with the demos being added in, it was a lot more fun for me, just because I was able to run demos for people, and that's just really fun anyway. The demos are pretty short. They're like 45 minutes for each game, but it's nice to be able to kind of give people a taste of some of these games, something I don't usually do. And would I attend if I was not working for Free League? Yeah, not for the full 4 days. I would definitely go probably for 1 day, and yeah, just pick up some good bargains on a lot of games. I live in Germany, so I'm kind of the perfect candidate for Free League to ask to come and work on the booth, mainly because I also have a working relationship with Free League. I have written stuff for Free League, so I know them fairly well, and obviously it's very close for me relatively close for me to come and work there. However, if I wasn't working there, because I live in Germany, there are a lot of publishers and board game makers and these sorts of people from other countries, especially America, where shipping is usually really expensive, or getting stock locally in Germany is also expensive because they have to pay high tax rates and shipping, and even though they're buying in bulk potentially, the prices are generally relatively high, whereas you can get them for really good bargains at the convention. So Absolutely, it's kind of for me a highlight of the year because I get to look at and try. I mean, there's demos on most of the big booths, so you can kind of look at a bunch of games, find some that look cool that you might not have heard of before. It was nice this year that there was a magazine that was provided that gave you. It was in German, but I think they did an English version as well. But I went through that before the last day on Sunday when I knew I would have 2 hours free at the first thing in the morning, and I went through this magazine and I was kind of reading through some new games that are just out to see if there's anything that tickled my fancy. And I was able to buy 2 games based on the magazine. So that was kind of cool. And I've only had a chance to play one of them so far. I'll come to that in a second. But the other one does look very cool. My highlight for me was running the demos, specifically the Zone Wars demo. I really like Zone Wars. I think it's a really cool game. I'm looking forward to covering it at least a little bit here on the channel later when it comes out. But it's cool that it has like a solo mode built in. You can bring your character progression through from the role-playing game and basically play alongside the role-playing game. So if you have this big like battle that comes up when you're playing the role-playing game, you can get out the skirmish table and rules and basically run it on the tabletop as a skirmish game, which I think is really cool. And it's got like, it has simplified rules, etc. Anyway, I'm going into almost a mini review of Zone Wars, and I don't really want to do that because it'll take too long. But that for me was the highlight. The downside for me was I arrived sick. I had a cold, but like a mild cold, and I was hoping it would go away like a week before. And of course, it moved right into my chest, and mainly gave me this bad cough. And the day before, I for a period of time, I lost my voice because I was, coughing so much and just talking really took its toll. So I went into a convention where I'd be having to talk to people quite loudly because there's a lot of ambient noise for 4 days straight, knowing that I was going to completely bugger up my voice. So that's why I haven't done a lot of videos since the beginning of October, is because my voice has been recovering and just talking was quite painful. I needed a period of time to recover from Essen. Saying that, I was taking a lot of meds while I was there. I was taking these amazing throat lozenge type things, which are called Revoice. They're made for professional singers, and they really help to like lubricate your airways, your throat, your esophagus, so that you're able to continue talking or performing or whatever. They're really good, and they got me through for sure, along with the meds. So I didn't really come down with anything really bad. I didn't have any fever. I didn't have any kind of additional problems. It was just my throat. I was still I still had the cough kind of lingering through, but yeah, that for me was a downside. It wasn't a lot of fun being ill at the start of it, and then having to basically put myself through quite a grueling physical ordeal. But because it's a highlight of the year, and I love just going there and talking to people about these games and kind of selling the games to people, and especially running the demos, I didn't want to miss out on it. So I'm glad I went. I think everybody there was happy I was there as well. I don't think I passed it on to anyone. I don't think Martin did come down with a fever like on the Saturday, but he bounced back and recovered and was working on the Sunday again. So it was kind of more like a 24-hour bug rather than I think what I had. Anyway, so that's me. Hidden gems I came across. There's a game that's actually a little bit older now. It won Spiel des Jahres, which is like Game of the Year. It's a big thing that's done here in Germany. I think it might even be an international thing, but at least in Germany here, there's this like badge that gets given to 3 different categories of games every year, and it gets kind of stuck on a game, and it's good. So things like Carcassonne and Settlers of Catan, those have all had them in the past. And this year, one of the ones that won it on the 3 categories are like Children's Game of the Year, the Normal Game of the Year, and like the Wissens. So it's kind of like the thinking, or like a strategic, or I don't really know how to describe it, but it's a bit more like rather than just like Game of the Year, it's kind of like this one's takes a little bit more brain power kind of thing. So there's kind of the 3 categories. And one of the ones I found, which I've played already a lot with my son, which is really fun, is called Micro Macro Crime City. It's the first of 4 games that have these massive maps. It's kind of like you have to find, it's like Where's Wally or Where's Waldo for Americans, but all black and white. And it's just a really clever way of you've got these cards that have like a case, and it has something to do with crime, usually murders, or it could be something else like a theft or something like that. And you basically have to kind of look at the map and try and find where the murder has happened or the crime has happened, and then you have to backtrack. And the character, like everything that's happened, is kind of like drawn on the map, so you can kind of like follow people around, and it's kind of a cool detective sort of thing. It's almost like you're watching CCTV and going backwards to kind of follow the steps and see what you can find. And that's really fun. I've bought the first one because I wasn't sure like what it would be like. It's a lot of fun. I'll probably be buying the additional 3, and all 4 of them put together. The maps are massive, and they stick together and make one big map of Crime City. And there's a 5th expansion, or like a single expansion for after all 4, which is like bonus material, including like 3 epic cases that track across all 4 maps, which I think is really awesome. So when you're done, you kind of like have this huge map of Crime City. With all these crimes that have been committed that you will have gone through and solved, and then at the end you can kind of get this like bonus one. And the website has initial bonuses, bonus cases and stuff. It's a lot of fun. The other game I got, which is Spiel des Jahres, is called Dorf Romantik, which I know has a Steam game as well. But the board game won Spiel des Jahres this year, and yeah, it looks kind of like a mix of Catan and Carcassonne, which are games that I enjoy, my family enjoys. But this one has a sort of like advancement mechanic in it as well. So you sit down and play it for like an hour or whatever with your family. You get so far, you kind of get some points, and the number of points you get, from what I understand, go towards the next time you play. You might have unlocked some more things for your village. So you're basically building this village together collaboratively. And as you play more and more, it's kind of like a legacy game in that respect. It has these like card tuck boxes, which have additional tiles and things that you unlock as you get to different steps in it, until eventually you're kind of unlocking a much more advanced village. So I've not actually played it yet. I'm kind of very curious about this. It sounds really cool. It sounds like a nice twist on Carcassonne. So those are the gems that I've found. I guess one other thing, role-playing wise, there's a game called I'm gonna get it wrong. I need to look it up very quickly. Give me 1 second. I think it's called... Oh, man. I don't want to get the name wrong. Okay. It's Fate of the Norns Ragnarok, which I got that all a little bit mixed up. And I didn't actually buy that game, but I bought... Like, I might have it here. I don't. It's downstairs. I got like the expansion for it, which is called... I'm gonna have to look that up as well because it's not here next to me. It's about playing in Ireland. Children of Araihu, or however that's pronounced. I'm not sure. Apologies to any Irish people watching. But it's effectively like a full expansion to Fate of the Norns Ragnarok. But it's kind of centered around like Viking Ireland essentially, and it's an expensive game. Fate of the Norns is a very expensive game. It usually retails for about €100 for the core rulebook ish here in Germany. It's been out of print on and off in print for a long time, and I actually found a Canadian distributor. I think it might even be the publishers at Spiel Essen. Just kind of randomly came across them and saw the game, and I was like, oh wow, I've wanted that for a long time. And then I was talking to them. I was going to buy the base game. And then it basically this Irish standalone expansion, they were kind of talking to me about. It's standalone. You don't need the base game. It streamlines some of the rules, and it adds in like social mechanics, which to me just sounded like, well, it's an improved version of the game. I'm gonna buy that one. It's a big fat chunky tome of a book. So I bought that. I bought some runes to go with it. From what I understand, you don't use dice in this. You cast some like rune stones, and the runes basically tell you how to play. So it's kind of a famous game. It's been out for, I think, more than 10 years now. It's been out for a while. It won some awards. It's just something I'm kind of, and kind of the whole Viking element to it is kind of a cool thing for me. Yeah, it's just a game I've been interested in a long time. I've never really been able to find, and I found it there at Spiel Essen. So that for me was a gem. I've not yet dipped into it. It's a big chunky tome of a book, so it's going to take me a while to digest it, but it's something I've wanted for a long time. Anyway, thank you, Attila, for that first question. That was a big one. Hopefully the rest of these won't be as long. Although when I get to the sci-fi one, I'm gonna have to try and contain myself and make it as short and snappy. The second question is also from Attila, and it says, "Can you see yourself sometime in the far future stopping playing role-playing games or tabletop role-playing games?" And the simple answer is no, I don't. While I have been getting more and more interested in other types of tabletop games, like big epic board games. I have a big box here. This old fat thing here, as you can see, it says Oaths, here, Oathsworn. So I'm looking forward to getting into that at some point. It's a big old game. I actually need to find a gaming space in my house that I can dedicate to board games, because I've got a bunch of board games I've been slowly collecting, and skirmish games. The plan is to look at the solo versions of the game, so I've mainly been buying and collecting games that have a robust solo mode to them, because I really want to dive into this and explore it and look at how maybe I can bring some of those across into my own projects, and maybe how I can also look at hybridizing some of my projects to include some board game elements, because it's something I'm really enjoying a lot, and something I'm experimenting with right now. At least it's very much in the kind of, brainstorming phases in terms of some of these projects I'm thinking about. But because I'm branching into that, I know Attila is familiar with me talking about a lot of board games. I've been buying a lot of board games. It's not replacing solo role-playing games for me. Role-playing games are a really amazing way of playing games. I've been doing it for a long time. I don't see myself ever not enjoying it. I really enjoy solo role-playing, and that's kind of something maybe where I see myself kind of going more towards, is doing less group-related role-playing and more solo role-playing, especially as the solo scene is just kind of getting bigger and bigger, and there's just more and more stuff always coming out, kind of growing in popularity, and something that I really enjoy. It's just something I want to do more of and make my own stuff in this little niche area. So no, I don't see myself ever stopping. Not to worry. I mean, if you do see yourself stopping, you want to see me kind of branching off into other things, that might happen, but I'm always going to still be interested in role-playing and producing role-playing content, at least as far as I can tell right now, sitting here in 2023. Next question is from Peter. So, I'm not a 40k fan, never have been. I like my sci-fi like I like my cheese, hard. Good man. It's a better vehicle, in my opinion, to explore topical anxieties and current political trends, agreed, to speculate on the consequences of present-day decisions, and to abstract political thought. Yep, that for me is also a big draw for hard sci-fi. In my youth, West End games Star Wars was my vehicle of choice. Awesome, that was my first tabletop role-playing game as well. But I'm enjoying the bits of your I am being Imperium Maledictum campaign I can catch between juggling various responsibilities. So, if some of you are confused about that, if you're looking at the channel, I have actually run 5 sessions of a Necromunda campaign using Imperium Maledictum, the official 40k rule set, but they're still in editing, so I've only released the session 0. The other 5 episodes are going to need to go through editing, and it's just been a bit crazy at the moment where I've not had the time to finish them off. So they will be coming soon. But my Patreons are able to watch the kind of raw, unedited videos of those. So that's what he's referring to there. So, could IM be a good tool to explore these issues? Or should I look to a different system? So that's one aspect of the question. The next question he asks is, he just kind of throws it in here on the end. What's your favorite sci-fi media? And why? And the last question is a rabbit hole. I need to be very careful I don't fall into. So, in terms of I am being a good tool to explore the issues that you're talking about, Peter, I would say no. I am is a great game for exploring the universe of 40k from a kind of gritty perspective. You're not playing the kind of heroic, Space Marines and Inquisitors and things like that. You're playing people like you're playing the people that those important people are not either hiring or you're working for them in some way. You have a patron who is basically giving you stuff to do. So from that respect, I think IM is really great at emulating the kind of gritty feel of the 40k universe, but I would not use it for hard sci-fi. For hard sci-fi, I have some recommendations. Now, you can go the rules light route, and you can go with things like Original Traveler, or I know Peter has used Year Zero Mini in the past, or like made his own kind of hybrid thing of using Year Zero Mini as a basis. You can absolutely use that for hard sci-fi as well, but I think hard sci-fi, in my opinion, benefits from a little bit of crunch. Not Not a huge amount. And I know people are definitely going to disagree with me, and I'm sure people have played really narrative, hard sci-fi games. But because one of the things you're kind of trying to look at, well, one of the aspects of hard sci-fi that's really defining is trying to use the term, emulate real world physics and things in the world. When you're looking at different types of media. So if you look at things like The Expanse, in The Expanse, you're not seeing ships that are doing dogfights like you do in Star Wars, or even Battlestar Galactica, because it's basically, you don't see the ships, you just see on your radar that something's been fired at you, and you might be able to dodge it, or if they're heat-seeking missiles or something. I don't know, The Expanse does definitely have some non-hard sci-fi elements to it, but it does have that veneer of being relatively hard, especially compared to a lot of other sci-fi media. And that sort of thing kind of helps if you have rules in the game to kind of try and bring some logic to that sort of thing. And as a result, the games I kind of recommend are games that are built for more hard, sci-fi worlds. Those are things like Traveler, especially the new, or not the second edition Mongoose Traveler. If you do like the crunch of that. There's the Cepheus engine, which is kind of like an open source, if you were open license, spin-off of original Traveler. Or maybe first edition Mongoose, I'm not sure exactly. There's lots of different iterations of Cepheus, by the way. There's a Cepheus Deluxe, Cepheus Regular, Cepheus Lite. There's even a Cepheus SRD, so you can make your own Cepheus stuff and get the whole rules in a kind of SRD format. There's also a spin-off of that called Hostile. There's a Hostile rules book, a Hostile setting book, even a Hostile solo book, which the Hostile solo, I've got it on my shelf. It's a big chunky book, and it has all the rules from Hostile, which is a spin-off of Cepheus in a specific world. It has all the rules repackaged for solo play, and even has a lot of setting information in it, as well as all the solo gumph that you need. So it's a really amazing kind of put together package. It's still a big old letter size or A4 size book, but it does have everything you need for playing solo in a kind of hard sci-fi world using this kind of Cepheus engine, which is kind of a Traveler engine. So Traveler's one route you could go. Another route is looking at BRP. And spin-offs of BRP, there's a game called M-Space, which uses the Mithras engine, but it's not affiliated with the design mechanism. It's made by a Swedish publisher, and M-Space is basically hard sci-fi using a streamlined Mithras engine. So it's using the same engine that powers things like Call of Cthulhu, RuneScape, and that sort of thing, but in a hard sci-fi package. And it looks amazing as well. I've only got it in PDF. That's a game I'd like to get in hard copy one day. But the format is also interesting in that they're kind of I think they're square pages. So when you open it up, it's quite like a long book rather than something else. So it's, for people who enjoy smaller digest-sized books, you might hate it just for the design. There's some white space and stuff around it, so it is quite artistically and there's a bit of a minimalist kind of feel going to it. The art is amazing. Some people I know have complained about the layout and stuff, but I really, really like it. I think it's a beautiful book, at least in PDF. I'm sure it's beautiful, as a physical product as well. But M-Space is another one I would definitely recommend. Other hard sci-fi, you could always play or use as a basis something like Alien or Coriolis. Coriolis is a little bit more space opera, but it does have a fair amount of crunch to it. So using that as a basis for a hard sci-fi game, I think could work. Alien, similarly, I think could work for a hard sci-fi game. But really, I think what you want to look for is I'm giving you systems because it sounds like you've done this in the past. You've looked at current sci-fi themes, maybe that you've read or you've seen in a movie or something like that, and you've tried to apply it to a game using the West End game Star Wars engine. So if you're already happy to kind of do that and come up with your own stories and think of the themes and come up with your own twists on them and stuff like that, then those are the systems I would recommend. Otherwise, if there are specific themes that you want to explore, then I think there are definitely games that kind of produce that exact experience that are kind of tailor-made for trying to bring about this theme. An example off the top of my head is I need to look at what it's called. Hack the Planet. It's on my shelf. I kickstarted it. Hack the Planet is effectively like an eco eco cyberpunk kind of game. So it's looking at a dystopian future where we haven't tried to fix the planet, we've just let it kind of go to shit, and then there's all the cyberpunk trappings that go on top of it. So that's kind of an interesting thing, because it's looking at topics, obviously, of the climate crisis right now, and taking it forward and putting a kind of cyberpunk dystopian skin over it. So that something like that would be another recommendation. I haven't really played a lot of sci-fi games like that. I'll talk in a second about like RPGs that I enjoy from sci-fi. But for me, sci-fi, and this is what I'm coming to your next. So that's your first part of your question answered, hopefully. Second part is one of my favorite sci-fi media, and I've come up with a big list here. I've had to think about it, and it's hard because I've grown up, like, I think the first sci-fi book I ever read was Dune when I was a teenager, and I've read the first Dune book probably 6 or 7 times. Like, I really, really enjoy that. Again, it's thinking about Dune. It's very philosophical compared to a lot of other sci-fi. I also read a ton of like Star Wars novels. So I've read like the Thrawn trilogy, again, when I was a teenager, and just read a ton of other sort of like what are now called the Star Wars Legends novels. And they're a bit more pulpy, I think. They didn't make me think as much. It was just kind of like, that's like, a sort of escapism type of thing. But in terms of books, while I'm on the subject, some sci-fi books I really enjoy. Recently, I read the first 2 books in the Bob-iverse, and the Bob-iverse is quite cool. It's about a guy who I don't want to give too much of the plot away, but basically it happens right at the beginning. This guy, like, I think he signs up for like some sort of like system where he's going to be cryogenically frozen, or his head is going to be, or something, so that when in the future he's able to when technology has gotten to a certain point, then he can be resurrected as a with future tech to be like a new person. He can live forever, that sort of thing. And I can't remember from this is right back at the very beginning of the first book, and I read those 2 books like more than a year ago, so it's a little bit fuzzy. But basically, what happens at the beginning is he gets awakened, but he's not in a new body. He's basically been put into the as artificial intelligence, obviously not artificial, but he's the intelligence of a ship, and has no body. So he kind of controls the ship, and it's just kind of interesting how, like, with the direction the book goes from there. And it's kind of comical. There's definitely some humor in it, but it's also a really good story, and really interesting to think about that type of theme. Which obviously there are companies in existence today who will freeze your body just before the point that you're completely dead, so that you can be revived potentially some point in the future and healed, or you can take your consciousness altered carbon style and stick it into another body or something like that for the ultra rich. So that's it's kind of a current sort of sci-fi sort of topic that gets the full full books. Like, there's a whole series about it. I'm not sure if there are more than 3 books, but anyway, there's at least 3. Brave New World is a book that I read around the same time I read Dune. It was a required book for my school when I was in high school or secondary school. And I remember being blown away by it, again, because of I was probably like 17 or so. I think it was my final year at school. So obviously being a teenager at that age, there's a lot of sex in it. So that was kind of, quite exciting. But the whole kind of concept of Brave New World really blew me away in terms of just, I'm not going to spoil anything for people who haven't read it. It's a great book. You should read it. But it kind of introduced me to this sort of like dystopian fiction, which I hadn't really come across before. Although it's obviously a utopian fiction in a way. And yeah, the whole storyline, it really makes you think about things, about topics that are still current today. And yeah, that for me was a really kind of, seminal book in my sci-fi life, whatever, however you want to say that. I also really enjoy the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. I've read that. I've read through the entire series, I think, once, but I read the first kind of couple of books, I don't know how many times. Just really great for comedy fiction. I also recently read The Wind-Up Girl, which is a sort of dystopian near future novel, and really enjoyed that as well. Again, another sci-fi book that really makes you think. And that's where I've stopped with books, because I could go on and on and on and on. But those are ones that are like ones that I've read recently that I quite enjoy. I enjoy all sorts of sci-fi. I enjoy military sci-fi. I've read quite a bit of Heinlein. I've read some Skazi, or however you pronounce his name, like Old Man's War. I've read The Forever War, was a really like by Haldeman, I think. That was a book that I really enjoyed as a teenager, I think, as well. Maybe I was a little bit older, but yeah. So I mean, I read a lot. Ringworld, I've read a lot of stuff by Asimov. Anyway, I don't want to take up too much time. I've already talked too much about books. Those are some of the big books. In terms of movies, I tend to really enjoy sci-fi horror when it comes to movies. I'm a huge horror fan, and sci-fi horror for me is just perfect. So obviously The Thing is a really seminal one. It's one that I really enjoy. Alien, the original Alien, I really enjoy. Event Horizon, Pandorum. These are all kind of sci-fi horror movies that I really enjoy. I do enjoy other stuff as well. I really want to see The Creator, which is obviously not out yet from cinemas. I haven't had a chance. I won't have a chance to see it in cinema. And I've heard mixed reviews about it, but I still really want to see it. The Matrix obviously is a sci-fi movie. That's in my top 3 probably of all time. I saw that in the cinemas, I don't know, maybe a dozen times. Like I remember when it went I was in the States when it was out. I had just moved back to the States from living abroad for my entire like teenage years, and it had just come out of the main cinemas and was in the Dollar Cinema in the town I was in. So I would go almost daily for $1 and watch The Matrix on the big screen. And I watched it, I don't know, for like 2 weeks. I watched it almost every day. It just blew me away. TV series, I do like hard sci-fi when it comes to TV series. So things like, or thinking ones like Black Mirror, I think arguably is a sci-fi TV series. And that also is obviously it's an anthology, and every episode is looking at a different topic, and I really enjoy that. Some of them are a bit hit and miss. It's just the nature of the beast, but I enjoy most of them, and I think that's a really great TV show. I enjoy The Expanse, the TV show. I like season 1 of Altered Carbon. Season 2 kind of lost the plot a little bit, I felt. Whereas season 1 was just really, really good all the way through. Andor, amazing. It's the only Star Wars thing I'm going to be mentioning at the moment. Tales from the Loop, the TV series, I wasn't sure what to expect. It's a slow burn TV series, but I really enjoyed it a lot. And in that vein, also Dark. I really enjoyed Dark, which is obviously about time travel and stuff. And Utopia. Can't talk about TV series without talking about Utopia, which is just phenomenal. I love Utopia. The British version. I know there's an American version. I've not watched that because the British one is just perfect. Role-playing games. I mean, I grew up on, my first game was Star Wars, Western Games version of Star Wars, so I enjoy that. I like Alien, I like Mothership, I like Coriolis, I like Starforge. Those are kind of, I'm going to stop there. Those are all ones I've played and I really enjoy. Obviously, they're all a bit darker other than Starforge, which is a little bit more like Firefly-esque in a lot of its feel, or a bit more Western. Still very fun. Video games, tons. It's hard for me to come down to like top 3. So I'm just going to list all the ones I enjoy. Half-Life 2, Subnautica, Fallout, XCOM, mainly the original XCOMs because those are the ones I played the most. I do like the new ones too, but I prefer the older ones. Soma, Alien Isolation, Horizon Zero Dawn, Mad Max, Freelancer, Heat Signature, FTL, etc. I own both, what are the 2 big ones? Star Citizen and the one that starts with an E. It's evading me. The other one that's like Star Citizen. Anyway, someone will mention in the comments what it's called. The name evades me right now. Not Eclipse. Elite Dangerous. There we go. I've not had a chance to play them, though. Mainly because I kind of have been waiting. I'm still waiting for Star Citizen to come out of beta and to release. And I'm aware that it's going to be a huge time sink, and I just don't have I don't play hardly any video games these days, and I'm kind of keeping away from it because I know it's going to be a huge time sink. I know Elite Dangerous has been released for quite a few years now, and for the same reason, I don't have the time to devote to that to kind of jump in and really get the most out of it. But they are games that I know I would enjoy the hell out of because I loved Freelancer when it was out, and modding Freelancer as well. And yeah. Anyway, that's it for me. I'm going to stop there because that was a lot of stuff to talk about with sci-fi. Thanks for the question, Peter. We're going to move on to Björn. What are your do's and don'ts when it comes to playing tabletop role-playing games online? Do you have some hot tips to share? This is a huge topic, almost needs its own video, and as a result, I'm only going to lightly touch on a few things in terms of do's and don'ts. First thing is safety. It's kind of hard when you're playing online to gauge the feel of the group, if some things are taboo or not. So I think even more so than face-to-face, although it's also important face-to-face, is when you're playing online to have some safety tools in place. Especially if you're playing with people you've never played with before. Even if that's just one person in the group that's new, you should always have safety tools in place. It's super important. The other thing to think about is hardware. So if you're playing with a virtual tabletop, you really need to have a desktop or a laptop that can handle, that can basically run it. I've played with people who have come to an online virtual session with a virtual tabletop with an iPad, and the iPad is perfectly capable of doing the video and the audio, but trying to run a virtual tabletop over an iPad is just a nightmare. It doesn't work. It kind of half works, so you don't actually end up canceling the session. You kind of muddle your way through, and it just, like, if you need to use a virtual tabletop, you really just do not bring a tablet. You need to have a proper desktop or laptop. So that's the first thing. Also, I think if you are going to really try and play online, it's worth investing in at least a decent webcam. Don't rely on the one that's attached to your laptop. You can spend as little as like $15 or euros, all the way up to well over 100 for some really decent ones. I obviously have a very good webcam, which is the one that I'm using right now, but that's because I run a YouTube channel and I need something that has full HD, etc. But you can get stuff for cheap that'll basically just make your video a bit more crisp and not so murky and muddy. And it's just worth a small investment, I think, for the others to be able to see your face in relatively decent detail. That said, there are some built-in like webcams which are like into laptops, which are pretty good these days. So it just really depends on the hardware that you currently have. And the second thing is the audio. I think one of my pet peeves is people who use their mic built into their laptop. That's kind of like, it might even be stereo. It might have two little dots next to the webcam, and the sound is just shit, and it picks up all the ambient sound around. They're just not great. And investing in at least a headset that has a microphone, ideally with like a physical mute switch on the cable, is definitely, just for other people, I think worth it, because it's just sometimes hard to understand what people are saying when they don't have a decent mic. If you can, then getting something like this, which is a proper microphone, it's not needed, especially if you're just starting out, you're not sure what you need. But if you do really get into it, then that is just going to make it sound like you're sitting next to people when you're playing, and it just is more comfortable for everyone rather than hearing this kind of like shitty audio, basically. Tying into audio, is you need to remember, and this needs to be something that's probably talked about with the entire group anytime you're playing with new people, is remember that you have mics. Remember that everyone else has earphones or earbuds on, which means they will be able, like, anything you do into the mic is going to go, it's going to be like your mouth is right next to their ear and doing it. So don't eat on the mic. If you're gonna drink, then just like drink off to the side, so it's not particularly loud. So you're not like going up to somebody's ear and being like drinking, or sipping hot tea. Or coffee. It's like, it is so annoying. It pulls you out of whatever game you're playing as well, and it's horrible. It's one of my huge pet peeves. And likewise, if somebody's a bit sick, or they're like sniffing a lot or coughing and stuff like that, if you know you have a big cough or a big sneeze coming up, don't do it into the mic. Like, mute that thing and then do it. Just think about, like, that's a big thing with online play for me, is just the having good manners, having good audio manners. And it sometimes needs to be said. And I think if you're playing a role-playing game, the GM needs to kind of enforce that to a certain extent. And but it should be a group thing, and people should all respect that, and respect the fact that they are effectively. Imagine playing a role-playing game around a tiny table, and you've got like a big group of like 6 people, so you're so close. It's almost like you're you could whisper and play the game because you're that close. That's what online role playing is like. So bear that in mind. And I guess, I mean, there's a lot more I could talk about. I think another thing to talk about is if you're just getting started, don't feel like you need to play with your physical sit-down group, although that can definitely work. Feel free to like look around and try and find other new people to play with, and stick with it. Don't get discouraged if it takes you quite a few attempts to find good players. It can be difficult at first because the pool is so huge, right? There's so many people playing online these days, and not everyone's gonna gel well together. People have different play styles, etc. So stick with it. Try and find communities of like-minded people that play the same kind of games that you like, and try and join games there. All right, last question from Kobiak. Will you use Free League's free tabletop license for Stiletto or other larger games? Yes. Have you had any more thoughts regarding using the FTL versus a standard copyright or a CC license? CC, sorry, means Creative Commons. At least if you do not use verbatim sections from the SRD in your game, with a link to the license agreement. So, yeah, I am planning on using the FTL for Stiletto. My Year Zero Mini is currently using the old OGL. So when I do my next big update to Year Zero Mini, which hopefully will be this year, sometime in the next month or two, it might be a little bit later than that. There's quite a lot I want to do to Year Zero Mini, but one of the things I have to do is I have to update the license, so it needs to move over to the FTL. So I am absolutely planning on using the FTL. In terms of whether I use that as opposed to some other open license or a Creative Commons license, the big draw for me with using the FTL is in being able to say that this is a Year Zero engine product. And the only way you can do that is if you're using the FTL. So I can come up with something that has similar mechanics, but isn't technically a Year Zero engine game, and I can use any old license I want. I don't even have to use a license if I don't want to, but I'm not planning on doing that. I'm pretty heavily involved in the Year Zero engine community, and I enjoy the Year Zero engine. That said, I don't plan on using verbatim sections of the SRD in my game. Year Zero Mini is a good example. I don't think I use any of the SRD in Year Zero Mini. I'm not planning on changing that because I've kind of written that all myself and compressed a lot of it down to kind of fit the small page count that I have. So I don't know. I think I might have used a little bit of the SRD in Stiletto. So maybe in bigger projects like that, I might be using a bit of it, but I don't feel beholden to that. I'm very happy to come up with my own mechanics within the framework of the Year Zero engine as I see it. And in that respect, yeah, I could theoretically, because I'm not using the SRD, I could theoretically change a few things, tweak a few things, and say, this isn't Year Zero engine, but it's inspired by it, and it's my own thing, and then use any old license I want. But I feel like by doing that, I'm missing out on a big marketing opportunity, which I think is important when you're trying to, I think the business side of creating role-playing games can be important. It doesn't have to be. You can just create stuff and throw it out there and see who likes it, and you might get lucky and get something really successful. But I think for people to actually see and play your games, which for me is makes me motivated to keep doing it. I'm finding that being tied to the Year Zero engine is important. From a business perspective, I love Free League's games. I love the Year Zero engine anyway, so it's not a hard decision for me to make. In the future, if I get kind of well known enough with game making that I can do my own thing, then absolutely I'll do my own thing, and I would potentially divorce myself from the FTL. But if I was to do that, I would probably do something that doesn't feel like, oh, this is the Year Zero engine, just a little bit different. I think I would probably try and do something relatively different to them, although I might borrow some mechanics here and there, because I think I like a lot of what they've done. So I hope that answers your question, Kobiak. But yeah, I am planning on using it for quite a long time. Anyway, that's me. There are links in the description for all the stuff I've talked about, including all the games I mentioned when I was talking about sci-fi, hard sci-fi games. There's links to M-Space, to Cepheus, to Traveler, etc. And there's also links to the Free League's licensing page, which has a breakdown of all the different licenses that they produce, if you want to check that out as well. But that's it for me. If you are interested in any questions to ask me and you're not a Patreon, well, you might get a brief response in a comment or on Discord. But for me to wax lyrical like I do on these videos, you need to be a patron and you need to ask me in one of my big monthly Patreon Q&A posts. As always, thank you very much, Patreons, for your support, and I'll catch you next month for the next Q&A. Cheers.